What if the king of car flips was hiding a dark secret that cost him his marriages, his TV show, and millions in court? Stick around because Richard Rawlings is finally revealing the truth. You know Richard Rawlings as the loud tattooed car enthusiast from Fast and Loud, who transforms rusty junkers into treasure and builds a global empire. However, behind the revving engines and TV fame, there's a story he has kept under wraps until now. In this video, we'll dive deep into the real Richard Rawlings, the highs, the lows, and the surprising secrets that reveal why his marriages fell apart, why he sold his prized car collection, and why Discovery canceled his show. Additionally, we'll explore that shocking $6 million legal battle that's more intriguing than you might think. Trust me, by the end, you'll see Richard in a whole new light. So let's hit the gas and get started. Who is Richard Rawlings? Picture this. It's 1969 in a gritty, working-class neighborhood in Fort Worth, Texas, when a kid named Richard Rawlings is born. Cars weren't just a hobby for him. They were his entire world. There's an old photo of him as a toddler, grinning ear to ear in a pedal-powered Volkswagen Beetle. It wasn't just a toy, but a glimpse into his future. While other kids were glued to Saturday morning cartoons, Richard was up at 3 a.m., riding shotgun with his dad, delivering newspapers. They would roll up stacks, cruise through dark streets, and throw papers onto driveways. After school, he would do it all over again for the afternoon edition. And on weekends, he'd pedal his bike from house to house, collecting payments. But here's the thing, it wasn't just about the cash. Richard had an eagle eye for cars. He memorized every make, model, and year parked in every driveway. People were often shocked by how much he knew, and he'd shrug and say, "I ride by your house twice a day. How could I not know what's parked out front?" His dad, juggling 2 or 3 jobs, always had one thing for himself, a car or a motorcycle. That was his reward, his escape. This taught Richard that if you want something special, you've got to work hard for it. By age 14, Richard wasn't just dreaming about cars, but buying them. In 1983, he scraped together cash from his paper routes and bought a green 1974 Mercury Comet. While most kids were counting on their learner's permit, Richard was already burning rubber in the school parking lot, doing donuts to show off. Sure, the car was an unappealing shade of green, but to him, it was the coolest thing on 4 wheels. By his senior year, he'd upgraded to a black 1977 Bandit Trans Am, straight out of Smokey and the Bandit, and earned a reputation as the car guy at Eastern Hills High School. However, he wasn't just showing off. He was flipping cars, buying low, fixing them up, and selling high. By graduating, he had flipped 20 cars, making more money than most teenagers could dream of. The carjacking that changed everything. Now, fast forward to the early 90s. Richard is 22, cruising in a 1965 Ford Mustang Fastback, a classic muscle car that collectors drool over. Things go sideways one night in a rough part of Fort Worth. Carjackers ambush him, trying to yank him out of the driver's seat. Richard fights back, and in the chaos, a bullet tears through his shoulder and down his arm. He survives, but the experience could have scared him off cars forever. Instead, it ignited a fire in him. Before the tattoos and TV fame, Richard attempted a straight and narrow path. Between 1988 and 1990, he wore 3 uniforms: police officer, firefighter, and paramedic, all before he turned 21. His dad's advice was simple: get a steady job, stay loyal, and retire with a gold watch. Richard gave it a shot. One day, while delivering Miller Lite to a bar, a regular, who he thought was just some drunk, asked him what he wanted to do with his life. Richard mentioned law enforcement, but said he couldn't afford the academy. It turned out the guy was a mayor. 17 days later, Richard was enrolled in the North Texas Police Academy. He worked as a cop in Alvarado and then as a firefighter in Capel, learning to stay cool under pressure, skills that would later help him in business. But by age 25, he was restless. He sold everything, bought a Jeep, and fled to California for a fresh start. 6 months later, he returned to Texas, broke, tattooed, pierced, and sleeping on his sister's couch. The Jeep? It had been repossessed. That rock-bottom moment didn't break him. It sharpened his resolve. In 1999, he launched Lincoln Press, a printing and advertising company, with a $100,000 loan. He knew nothing about printing, but everything about branding. Within 5 years, the business was thriving. In 2004, he even offered a Lamborghini Gallardo to the first client, who spent $1 million with him. That stunt worked, and when he sold the company, he had the cash to chase his absolute dream: cars. In 2002, Richard opened Gas Monkey Garage in Dallas. It was a run-down place, no running water and no AC, but he poured his heart into it. To get the name out there, he attended car shows, trade events, and anything that could build buzz. In 2007, he and his buddy Dennis Collins decided to tackle the Cannonball Run, a legendary coast-to-coast race. The record, set in 1979, was 32 hours and 51 minutes. Richard and Dennis completed it in 31 hours and 59 minutes, driving a modified Ferrari 550 Maranello. They averaged 87.6 mph over 2,811 miles. Some people doubted their achievement, but Jay Leno, the ultimate car guy, gave Richard props, and that acknowledgement meant everything. Fast and Loud takes over the world. By 2012, after years of hard work, Discovery finally greenlit Fast and Loud. The show premiered on June 6th and transformed Gas Monkey into a global brand, airing in over 200 countries and translated into 13 languages. The premise was straightforward: find beat-up classic cars, restore them, and sell them for a profit. Richard Rawlings made it entertaining, fast-paced, and family-friendly. Viewers were drawn to the drama of tight deadlines, last-minute fixes, and big reveals. The show ran for 16 seasons, with 155 episodes, concluding in 2020. Richard's cash money formula was the key to success: buy smart, sell smarter. He often carried stacks of cash to close deals on the spot, famously stating, "You can always buy a $10,000 car for $5,000 if you've got it in your pocket." One standout flip involved a Dodge Challenger, which was purchased for $40,000, restored for $77,000, and sold for $150,000, resulting in a $73,000 profit on a single car. However, Richard didn't stop at television. He built an empire that included Gas Monkey Bar and Grill, Gas Monkey Live, energy drinks, tequila, and clothing lines. The bar and grill opened in 2013, featuring a 19,000 square foot venue that blended car culture, music, and nightlife. A second location opened at Dallas-Fort Worth Airport in 2014. Later that year, Gas Monkey Live, a 38,000 square foot concert venue, opened its doors, hosting major acts like Motley Crue. In 2014, Richard became Dodge's national spokesperson, and in 2010, he launched Gas Monkey energy drinks, which are now sold at motorsports events like the Indy 500. The story takes a complicated turn as we delve deeper into Richard Rawlings' life. Behind his fame and fortune lies a dark secret, one that sheds light on his troubled personal life, explains why he abruptly sold his extensive car collection, and reveals the real reason why Discovery canceled Fast and Loud. This connection to a $6 million legal battle that nearly dismantled his empire. The marriages that crashed. First, let's examine his personal life. Richard has been married 3 times, but it's more complicated than it seems. 1993, he married Karen K. Grames, but their marriage ended within a year. Next, in 1999, he wed Suzanne Marie Mergel in Las Vegas. They divorced in 2009, reconciled, remarried in 2015, and divorced again in 2019. This second divorce cost him $300,000 and a Mercedes SL 450 Roadster. Why couldn't he maintain these relationships? The pressures of fame, constant travel, and the demands of building an empire left little room for personal connections. Next, let's discuss his car collection. In September 2023, Richard surprised fans by auctioning off nearly 30 cars, earning $1.8 million. A 1993 Toyota Supra sold for $121,000, and a 1965 Mustang Fastback fetched $75,000. Why did he decide to sell? He claimed he wanted to transition to high-end European cars, but whispers suggested deeper issues, perhaps financial troubles or a desire to distance himself from past drama. The 6-year legal battle explained. Now on to the crucial question: why did Fast and Loud come to an end? In 2020, Richard appeared on the Joe Rogan Experience and mentioned leaving Discovery to regain creative control. However, more to the story was connected to that $6 million lawsuit. In 2018, Gas Monkey Bar and Grill sued Richard for defamation, alleging he attempted to sabotage the business to escape his partnership. The 47-page lawsuit accused him of showing up uninvited, disrupting staff, and making false assertions about financial mismanagement. One email from 2015 even indicated that Richard had accused the bar of fraud, which allegedly scared off vendors and jeopardized a potential sale of the brand. In response, Richard filed a $1 million countersuit in 2019, asserting that the bar continued using the Gas Monkey name and logos after their licensing agreement expired, damaging his brand, notably when it hosted lewd events. Rumors circulated that the bar was struggling. Gas Monkey Live had already closed, and some believed Richard was distancing himself to protect his reputation. What is the underlying dark secret that connects all these events? At 55, Richard is finally opening up. The pressures of fame, legal battles, and his own mistakes brought him to a breaking point. He recognizes that the lawsuits and divorces were consequences of his obsession with success. The turmoil surrounding the bar was not just business. It was deeply personal, driven by ego and poor choices. Selling his car collection was an attempt to clean the slate and start fresh. His departure from Discovery was not merely about regaining control, but also a way to escape a burdensome situation that was overwhelming him. The $6 million legal dispute was the tipping point, revealing cracks in his empire and forcing him to confront a harsh truth. You can't outrun your own issues. Richard Rawlings built a legacy from nothing. A boy who delivered newspapers grew into a global car icon. However, his narrative extends beyond horsepower and profits. It reflects the cost of pursuing dreams. His marriages faltered because he couldn't slow down. The sale of his car collection was intended to fund a new chapter in his life. Fast and Loud ended because he needed to reclaim control over his life. That $6 million lawsuit? It was chaotic, painful, and a wake-up call. Today, Richard is still in the game, rebuilding his collection with Ferraris and Lamborghinis, running Gas Monkey, and proving that he's not done yet. Love him or hate him, there's no denying he's one of a kind.